And in fact, the money that we get from the state that we're allowed to spend on other city functions, everything else that's in the pie chart, and flip over to the back sheet, it shows you how we spend the money, which departments we spend money on. But all other municipal services, other than public schools, that we receive aid for from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has actually gone down since I've been in office in 1996 until now. And the message is essentially, especially over the last half dozen years, and beginning in fiscal year 2003, I'm not pointing a finger at then Governor Romney, but happened to coincide with his installation as governor. Commonwealth at that time, in the middle of the fiscal year, cut back aid to cities and towns, non-educational, allocated. And since that time, we have yet to recover and receive back the type of aid that we had been receiving prior to the cutback. But even in a 10-year period, the aid, and we don't show it here, we don't show it broken out, that which is allocated to public schools versus what we can spend on all other departments in the city. There's been a net reduction, because in addition to them giving us aid, they also charge us for certain activities that are conducted by the Commonwealth. Charter school activity, MBTA activity. So we're actually in a net loss situation for all other forms of aid that we get to use to do everything else. And that's everything that you see on the other side under expenditures. So what I was saying earlier is the basic message that we've been getting from the State House is, except for education, where the state has been very vocal about its intention to invest, cities and towns, you're on your own. And for us being on our own, if you have any ability to be able to read these charts, it is almost a difficult, almost an impossible proposition. Because we're limited by Proposition 2.5. So the real estate tax growth, if you took that revenue sheet again, looked at 1999, look at the red splotch from bottom to top, it looks exactly the same. That's 2.5% of growth year over year. That's all the money that we can increase from one year to the next over the base. It doesn't mean exactly 2.5% on your tax bill, but the entire amount of money that we can raise from all the property owners in the community is capped at 2.5%. We've raised that 2.5% every year. I'm not here to either deny or evade that issue, but in our ability to be able to pay for everything else, you can see that it's $59 million. That's all the money we raise from real estate taxes. We spend $142 million. So it's pretty easy to figure out that without a partner, which is the state of Massachusetts, contributing to the other kinds of things we want and have to do other than schools, we're very much minimized in our ability to be able to do it on our own. And this fiscal year just happened to be the year. We've tried over the last several to use a number of stopgap measures in order to make our budget balance and not have a deficit. We're obligated to not have a deficit from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. We could no longer do that based upon the amount of revenue we had coming in versus our expenses. So the obvious question is, well, cut your expense. Why not cut your expenses? We do every year. We take a look at what every department asks for. As we go through the budgetary process, the amount of money we have versus the amount of money that everybody not would like to spend but thinks they can use on our behalf is here. So our budget team goes through a very rigorous process and tries to get it down to the bottom line. And we've done a very good job of doing that. But in My estimate, over the last several years, as I said, we've had to do some kind of one-time things. A few years back, we sold some of the surplus school property that we had in order to make things balanced. This is, again, beginning in that the era of 2003, 2004. We had some surplus land. We sold that because we scrimped and saved every year, and our financial people do a great job at making our department heads justify every purchase. We had some money left over a year or two. We used that for another year to make the budget balance the following year. But this year, we were up against the prospect of trying to figure out how to cut $5 million out of the 142, and I want to talk about that in 1 minute. I know I'm giving you a lot of facts and figures, but it is an important exercise. Trying to cut $5 million out of the 142, or look for other revenue sources. The pay-as-you-throw program is the revenue source that we focused on. I'll talk about that in a minute as well. The $5 million cut, it looks like a simple exercise when you consider that it has to be, or can be done, over $142 million of spending. But of the $142 million of spending, almost 120 of it is mandated spending. It's money that we do not have any discretion to cut. And it's not added up here for you, but it consists of things like hard costs that are built into the budget the day we consider trying to figure out how much we have and how much we're entitled to spend. But $120 million of it goes in the form of a variety of things. Public schools. We're mandated by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts as a result of the new act that was passed and new aid that has come in to spend at least $66 million on our own public schools. The Commonwealth mandates that they take from the aid that they give us another $6 million to support the charter school. We spend another $1,400,000 to support the vocational school. That's not a decision. We don't get to decide whether we give them $1.4 million, $1.3 million. They give us the bill, we have to pay it. We have to pay things like tax for Medicare for employees just like every other employer does. We have group insurance costs as part of the benefit package. Again, that fluctuates with the number of employees you have, but there's no discretion on how much you have to pay. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second as well. There's a bunch of little things we're going to talk in addition about, but it's a hard and fast cost. We have pension costs. We have utility costs. So I could give you the exact itemization, but the point I'm trying to make is in the exercise to try to figure out if we're $5 million short, how to cut it, you're only faced with about $22 million to be able to cut it out. So the point I'm trying to stress is it becomes a much more difficult and serious exercise. We look at everything every year, we've done it for the past 5, to cut out anything extraneous. And then you get into the decisions about personnel, because that is really the only place you have to cut. And cutting $5 million out of the budget would, in my estimation, mean a substantial beginning of a rollback in the kinds of services that lead to the quality of life that we're trying to deliver this year, but more importantly, in future years, in an ongoing basis. It would mean we would have to come up with the same amount of cutting potential year after year if there's no new revenue coming in. And I hope you're getting my point here. It's not just this year, it's next year and every year thereafter that we have to make it work. So $5 million to be cut would mean something like, if not the closing of a school, it would mean substantially downsizing across the entire system. Can be done. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it would be substantial. And you always hear the kinds of political words, devastating. You know, I'm not here to try to paint that kind of a picture, but I am telling you that it would mean a substantial reduction in what I believe our school system could deliver. It would mean a substantial reduction in our police force. I mentioned earlier, no new police officers since 1996 to now, not one new position.